rain continued to fall, soon overflowing the ground with 2 inches of water and clouds of mud. A haunting shriek was sent through the air, and was quickly met with screams of agony as a gopher was ripped into shreds. The commotion attracted Zuma's attention as he poked his brown muzzle out of his kennel. His body was shaking. He had just spent solid minutes pressed against the back of his walls of his den, when the creature had emerged and began walking, sticking his nose out in the rain. He fearfully caught sight of the Varrock's moths catching a small rodent and exacerbating it. With the predator distracted, Zuma spotted Rocky and sprinted back to his kennel. For a moment the lab felt a flicker of solace, knowing that his friend was safe, only to die anyway once he realized the inconsistency of that statement. Was it really truly safe? How long until the monster realized to squat down and peer over the kennels? The doors were merely sheet metal or wood. They wouldn't stand a chance to the creature's might. With shaking breath, he took a glance at Marshall's kennel. The door was wide open, sending a shockwave alarm through the lab. All it took was one passing glance inside, and Marshall would meet the creature's claws. He had to move. Watching the Varrock's moths grip the bones of the rodent and pull them out was a grisly scene, but he needed to watch his movements to know if the coast was clear. After taking a deep breath in a fleeable effort to calm himself, he took a step outside, further exposing himself in the open. Wanting to make the haste, yet suppress as much noise as possible, he left the limited safety of the kennel and trekked to Marshall's place. Careful not to scare the frail dog, Zuma stuck his head out in first, scanning the interior of the firefighter's den until he spotted a tail sticking out from under the bed. "Marshall?" he tried to call out, looking around before creeping inside. "Are you okay?" No response. Zuma knew he was scared, but just as he was. There was no time to panic. As much as he wanted to crawl into a cabinet and hide until the sun returned, he had to help his friends. He didn't trust Chase to take the lead, not in a time like this, as he was already suspecting the shepherd had some skeletons in his closet. "Marshall," he repeated, coming closer. "It's me, Zuma." He tried not to yell, keeping his voice low, despite having no idea how efficient the monster's hearing was. "Come on, please stay with me." The tail quickly retracted into the bed, and the dog underneath shuffled around. Zuma took another worried look outside as Marshall stuck out his head, so terrified so one would think his spots would fall off. "Zuma," he quivered, "is that you?" "Of course." The lab turned back at him. "Who else?" "Chase said that thing can hide inside others." "I don't think Chase is a reliable source at this moment," Zuma said, narrowing his eyes and glancing towards Rocky's kennel, where the others were hiding. "But I am. You can talk to me." Marshall was about to say something when the sound met his ears. Zuma heard it as well, a low layered growl of dozens of voices at once. It was nearby and picked up the tiny skeleton into a mess full of puzzle pieces for scavenging buzzards. Now its attention was elsewhere, revolving the clearing dogs, foolish enough to stray in its own path. Zuma couldn't see where it had gone. He didn't dare leave Marshall's side kennel for at least a better view. He attempted to sniff for it, but his sense of smell was blocked by the unending dew of the rain carried down. "We're not safe," Zuma concluded. He didn't dare let Marshall in on the fact that they were likely not safe anywhere to begin with. A few kennels down, Chase was trying to calm Rocky back to his senses. The mixed breed was not only drenched with his biggest phobia, but also had witnessed a merciless creature of the creature. His heart ached for his friend's distress, yet he felt a slight frustration at Rocky's intensive state. Quickly, after drying him off, Chase looked down at the cowering mix. "Rocky, come on," the shepherd growled. "Get a hold of yourself." An echoing roar sounded from across the clearing, putting Chase on alert as he snapped his attention outside. Flickering his eyes around, he only saw the night shrouded outside and the continuous falling of rain. "Rocky," he said again, turning his ears around to try and tune himself to the direction of the noise. His voice was quickly rising, and the severity and dread filled his mind. Rocky, come on. I need you here and now. He instinctively backed away from the entrance, retreating to the den. He still heard no reply from his friend, and the gray dog was hunched over on his bed, shaking like a child hiding from their horrid family. Impatient, he turned and grabbed Rocky by the shoulders. Rocky! He snapped, as quietly as possible, giving the mix a single violent shake. The mix blinked at the sudden motion, meeting Chase's gaze with the quickened breaths. You there? Chase raised an eyebrow. You alive? Rocky quickly snapped back into reality, shaking his head and jabbing a paw to move forward and shove Chase off. Get off of me! Falling to his side, the gray puppy was overcome with fear as his body shook. The tail! Chase, it's its tail! Stumbling, Chase flattened his ears with an agitated look. What? What are you talking about? The creature, its tail is a weapon, Rocky said, choking on his own words. A really long and fast weapon. I saw it kill a... So what? The shepherd interrupted him, annoyed at Rocky's irritating state. The whole goddamn thing is a weapon. Did you think the rest of it was safe? Get a hold of yourself and stop zoning out on me. Hey, next time you're going out there to witness the most horrible thing in your life, Rocky said, returning the annoyance tenfold. You expect me to be calm and that thing is on the prowl? Just tell me how to fix the breakers. The mix sighed and grimaced for a moment. It smashed the box in. About half the breakers are damaged. But I could fix it, but I'll need time and a special tool. What kind of tool? A dielectric driver. I can't replace them without this thing. I don't have one. Seriously? Chase slapped his paw over his face. I figure all of you dogs would. Can we use it anything else? Rocky bristled slightly, annoyed at his friend's impatience. No, given the damage, which probably goes deeper than all the wiring, if I use anything else, it either won't work or I'll get electrocuted. Both dogs stopped as the sounds emitted from outside. Traps and scratches of plastic were audible, as well as the echoing pounds of the large creature walking. Chase flattened his ears, lowering himself as it was on another animal. The noise wasn't directly above him, meaning that they weren't in mortal danger. But how soon until they were? Rocky quickly stepped back. Chase, I can't fix the box without the driver. You obviously don't have one? The shepherd argued. Clearly they're important to an extent. Ryder never gave me one, he shot back the mix. In fact, he never let me handle tools like that to begin with. I've always just used screwdrivers and hammers, never anything interesting. Wait, you said the half breakers, Chase suddenly put together. What's still working? The mix shook his head, struggling to remember. I think it was the basement. Everything in the tower itself is dead, but there's still power underground. Underground? The shepherd thought aloud. That includes the boiler room? Your guess is as good as mine, Chase. I didn't even know we had a room like that. Well, I guess we do. All I need to get in there, Chase grimaced, remembering his cardinal mistake of throwing away the ACG's radio and gun. Do you have any idea where Ryder might have kept one of those tools? Rocky thought for a moment, looking around the ground until he got an idea. Probably in his garage with his AV. The garage door is closed. We don't have any way of getting in there without power, hissed the police dog. Well, there has to be a way, Rocky exclaimed in desperation. But if it will shut you up, I'll look and see if I have anything that can help. Chase stuttered in confusion as Rocky suddenly got up from his position and walked over to his desk in the corner. He started opening several drawers and rifting through them, grunting in agitation when he didn't see what he needed. Chase wanted to ask what he was looking for, and only for him to quickly dodge the items as they were tossed away. Rocky's desk was filled to the brim with junk, as numerous things were tossed into the floor. The shepherd rolled his eyes as screws were dumped, wrenches of various sizes, and a blowtorch. Taking another look behind him, Chase swallowed and dared himself to peek outside. The nerves were killing him. The inability or sense of the threat outside was filling him with paranoia. Quietly moving forward, Chase poked his head out to the rain and frantically looked in all directions, fearing of being exposed for a second could be his death. His eyes finally rested on a startling light. Varrock Smiles was not just standing on top of Zuma's kennel, but leaning its head over, looking through its entrance and scanning the den. Its black tentacles were groping around the structure, seemingly latching onto the event it would need to climb inside the kennel from upside down. Its long tail danced in the air, quivering with anticipation. Chase gulped and pulled himself back in. "Rocky, it's starting to look in the kennels," he said frantically, trying to hide the quivering and the fear in his voice. "Whatever you're looking for, find it now." "Got it!" Rocky gripped a blue roll of paper inside his teeth and pulled it out of the cabinet. "What is that?" "Blueprints of the tower," the mix replied, dropping the paper and letting it unroll on the ground. "Ryder gave me this when he tasked me with fixing some pipes. I guess he never asked for it back." Chase came forward to study the paper. It was a detailed description of the lookout tower, complete with the exact measurements in every single nook and cranny, as well as documented. "There," Chase pointed to the small rectangular below the tower diagram. "That's the boiler room. That's where I need to go." "Hey, what about the vent system?" Rocky pointed at a few faint network lines that formed a grid around the tower. The shepherd narrowed his eyes until the lights came on in his head. "You're right, look! Here's one that connects to outside. If we get the covers open, we should be able to get inside." "Looks like it's just around the tower," noted the mixed. "Somewhere behind it. It looks like we need to get the others." Chase quickly glanced outside, assuming that thing hasn't gotten them. His words were met with a shocked bark from an appalled mix. "What? Don't say things like that." "Just get ready to move." With his idea now churning in his head, Chase glanced outside, only to be confused as the Varrock Smiles was nowhere to be seen, and the pouring rain made it difficult to see, but a creature like that would stand out in the open. Confusingly, the monster was seemingly gone, vanished from eyesight, with the small sounds of bewilderment. He pushed himself off further to get a better look around. Where did it go? Chase looked at his head, slightly still fearful, but relieved that the coast was clear. Small droplets hit his head, making him remember that he was in the rain. Sighing, he shook his head to get it off the water, scattering droplets around him. He was about to walk inside when something quickly caught his eyes. Red droplets, in a small radius around him. Several drops of red were spread out. Chase narrowed his eyes and looked at the odd stains, trying to figure out where they could have been from. "Hey Rocky, are you seeing this?" he called back to his friend. The mix turned around. "Seeing what?" He quickly stopped, suddenly freezing up and backing away. Chase noted his friend's sudden terror and gave him a puzzled look. "Why are you looking at me like that?" "Chase," Rocky quivered, "there's blood on your head." "Oh my," the shepherd repeated, still confused. "What?" He reached a paw up and the slick back of fur on his head, bringing his arm back down and held his paw in front of him, nearly choked when he saw his paw pads covered in crimson red blood. "What?" he tried to say, looking to his side out in the clearing. He quickly spotted Zuma staring at him, eyes also wide in fear from the muzzle agape. It was then Chase had a haunting realization. The drops of blood hitting his head weren't rain at all. A screech filled the air. Varrock Smiles jumped off of Rocky's kennel and landed with a splash of water and mud. It was ambush, its body blocking the way into the kennel, as Chase fell backwards in alarm. The shepherd's eyes widened, his own words overlapping at his heart skipped a beat. He landed on his back like an overturned turtle, screaming as he flailed in the mud, stalking it like before him. Varrock Smiles stared down at the helpless puppy, hissing as it walked forward. "No, no!" Chase's paws finally caught traction, staring up in paralyzed terror at the creature. The rain beat down, bathing the creature and giving it a lovely shine, while also mockingly showering the water in Chase's eyes. With every fiber of his being, he tried to crawl backward, making feeble distance but as the Varrock Smiles continued to walk, closing the area between them. With every few feet Chase had crawled away, the creature would make a single step. It watched Chase's horror as his distress and his fear, and basked away every second of it. The sheer terror it pulled its victims, like it was a rush of the strongest drug out there. The tentacles that lined its body vibrated to life, unwrapping from its torso and reaching forward. "Chase!" Zuma howled from across the clearing. frozen in terror at the sight of the perfect predator. No! Chase helplessly waved his paw at the creature. Like the jester, anyone will be alone enough to ward it off. Get away! Get away from me! The police dog stumbled backwards, panicking as he frantically pushed himself back. The mud was catching him, slowly pulling him into a shrinking hindrance that would take his life. The creature before him merely followed steadily, emitting a low hiss as it stared down into him with its torn, beady eyes. It completely towered over Chase, nearly 5 times his size, and possibly even larger. Frantic, Rocky turned his back to his fangs and desperately searched for anything that could help. His eyes then raced over every item at disposal. The vents! Chase called to his friends. Use the vents to get in the tower. The mix looked over the objects on the floor and quickly spotted the blowtorch. Heart racing, he grabbed the small tool by the handle and raced to the front door of the kennel. Chase's life was flashing before his eyes as he backed up to the soiled puddles that flooded his clearing. His gaze locked with one of the monster. Rocky raced for the front, then quickly backed up from the Varrock's flicking tail, eagerly beginning to twist and contort. Thinking fast, Rocky turned his head to the side and sharply tossed out the tool as hard as he could. The blowtorch sailed under the creature's legs and landed in the mud with a splat. Chase quickly glanced down at it and then realized that his life depended on it. He grabbed the blowtorch with his teeth and already sharing a snarl from the creature's response. He kicked the valve on the back as far to the right as it would go, held up the torch and sprayed whatever god or gods were watching him, and bit down on the trigger. The clearing of the lookout was suddenly illuminated in bright glow, burning away the darkness as the fire's scorching light bit into every dark corner and shone brightly. Zuma and Rocky had to hold up an arm to shield their eyes, having spent too long in the dark, as their eyes were unprepared for the searing brightness that now burned before them. Not even the rain could snuff out the flame. The only thing that would stop it was the limited fuel within it. Turning the gas valve up to its maximum was not in intended use, as this would cause an unstable flame to emit outwards continuously. Chase himself was already blinded by being so close, as the torch was directly carried into his mouth. Varrock's immediately stumbled backwards and roared out, colliding with Rocky's kennel and making it rock to the side. Items and tools crashed onto the floor inside it, and Rocky himself had to grab a wall to save his body as the painful fall. It was startled. It raged constantly, snarling and bracing itself as the fire was about to shoot forward. Zuma watched the encounter, narrowing his eyes as he studied the creature's actions. Despite being slightly disoriented, Chase backed up, glancing behind him in the forest. Get to the vents! All of you! The creature was fuming, moving left and right as if it were trying to outmaneuver the flame. For a second it bounced forward, swiping its claws in front of one powerful motion. Although they hit nothing, further angered, it roared out its demented scream, hammering on the case. Its tail flared to life, curling over its back and pointing forward. With an enraged roar, it blindly spared the fall tail forward of the fire's light, but it stabbed only into the air. The attack had missed by mere centimeters, nearly penetrating Chase's skull. Zuma took the opportunity to drag Marshall out and started moving him outside, aiming to reunite with Rocky while the threat was distracted. Its tentacles were spiraling out like erratic worms, its tail flickering in all directions as it set sights on snuffing out the burning flame before it. The blowtorch had limited fuel. It wouldn't last forever. Taking up another look behind him, Chase decided in the split second he would turn around and run, taking the blowtorch with him as he sprinted across into the trees. With what little remained of his light, he used to draw the monster away. Even for a few seconds, he briefly heard Marshall's call as he ran, tearing across the wet grass before the trees. A snarl sounded from behind him as the Varrock's quickly caught up with him, closing the distance between him in mere seconds. It spread its claws and dove towards Chase's body. The shepherd quickly wiped around, thrusting the burning fire and waving around. The monster gore screeched out in response, flexing its claws and swinging its arms wildly. Chase turned and ran again. He knew that he couldn't outrun it, but the torch would give him just enough to bite back. However, the flame was dying fast, and how long until the Varrock smells had bit the bullet entirely, powered through the fire? Adrenaline coursing through him, Chase charged through the bushes and entered the forest. Varrock smells growled, then looked up at tall, towering oak trees, connecting with dots in his head, sprang up and lashed his claws into the tree, grabbing in the high canopony. Go, go, go! Zuma hurried outside, pushing along the panicked Dalmatian. Where is he going? Marshall worried out loud. It followed him to the forest. Good, maybe he'll keep it there. The two met up with the fearful mixed breed, standing outside his kennel. Follow me. There are vents behind the lookout. Rocky flickered his head in direction. We can use them to get into the tower. What about Chase? Marshall chipped, turning away his wary eyes to the tall walls of trees. He seems to have made up his mind, Zuma said quickly, pulling him along. Let's go. Seizing the opportunity that the creature distracted, the trio dogs took it off through the rain. Rocky quickly ignored the wetness, realizing greater things were at stake, and there was no time for fear as something as trivial as water. Zuma continued leading the Dalmatian, almost ready to drag him if it felt like Marshall was about to run after Chase. The firefighter didn't fully understand why Zuma distrusted the shepherd, a fact that frustrated the lab, but he promised to explain later when they weren't staring down at the eyes of death. The quick run around the tower ended when they both came up behind a structure, briefly passing both the destroyed breaker box and the water-large carcass that was once a gopher. They approached a rectangular vent that was just behind the tower, just big enough for a puppy to fit inside. However, a quick observation revealed that there was no way to open the cover. Wait, there's no handle? Zuma realized. How are we supposed to get in? Rocky took a second to wipe the rainwater off his face. We could cut it open or force it open. But Chase took the blowtorch with him. The mix whipped around, baring his teeth. Do you see any other options? Well, I'm just trying to help. We'll try harder, Rocky barked. I have a crowbar in my kennel somewhere. I was hoping we could be quieter about this, I guess. That's the only way. Half a mile away, Chase was running for his life, sprinting as fast as he could through the wet grass, throwing himself through the bushes that drenched him in blinding water every time, navigating around the trees that were nearly invisible in the dark of the night. One wrong move could be his end. He had never ran so fast in his life, and knowing that there was an active pursuer on his tail was spiking his anxiety. The only way he could see forward was the light provided from the blowtorch of his mouth. It was burning intensively, and sparks of fire ignited the propane. However, this also made him like a literal beacon, a light visible from at least a mile away to anything that could be following him. He had no plan, no direction, no idea where to run. He could be going in circles and he'd not even realize it. Chase continued to sprint, weaving around a tree and jumping over a log. He glanced behind him for a brief moment, trying to get a read off of the Varrock smiles was following him, yet he only saw the infinite void of trees that he'd been seeing since he entered the forest. Suddenly his paws painfully collided with the object that he couldn't see, tripping him and launching the puppy forward. The torch flew out of his mouth and landed in some ways away. He fell hard, clipping the tree and bouncing off into the puddle. He could barely even make a noise before his world suddenly flipped sideways, complete with an arching sting in his head and paws. Ah! The puppy groaned, twitching for a moment before he opened his eyes. His vision was spinning. Water almost went up his nose before he picked his head up from the puddle. Ignoring the pain, Chase hobbled up. His body was a wreck. He looked around, realizing his light source was gone. Where? He felt like a lost duckling, abandoned in the unfamiliarity, surrounded by the things waiting to kill him. He took a blind step forward, then another and another, trying to find a direction while stopping to shake off the rainwater. Thunder sounded overhead, almost mockingly, as the sky very briefly lit up with the lightning illuminated from his surroundings for a split second. Echoing a scream that could be heard in distance away, Yet the sound bounced off the trees and surrounded Chase. Varrock Smalls was nearing fast, and for all the abilities that the creature seemed to have, was night vision one of them? He hobbled for a few more steps, his paws howling in pain for the fall, but after a few seconds he caught something in the corner of his eye, a burning red light. The blowtorch. Chase perked up and began to make his way towards it. Then he stopped. Varrock Smalls was a predator, clearly adept on getting what he wanted. Chase gulped, trying to keep his composure as he slowly backed away from the light. When he reached about 6 meters away from the lit torch, the puppy reached down and grabbed the small rock in its mouth. Heart racing, forehead flooding with rainwater, he took a deep breath and tossed the rock over to the torch. It landed almost in fire. For a brief moment, nothing happened, but Chase was unmoving. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Varrock Smalls dropped down from the sky, seemingly dodging itself from the tree as it was roaring out its scream, forcing Chase once again to cover his ears as the sound ignited its static in his head. The creature smashed its paws into the torch, suffocating it to water. The light illuminated ultimately died out, waterlogged and snuffed for nothing. The monster had been waiting. He'd even found the torch early with no dog attached to it, and it's close to hide overhead in the covers of the trees and branches, waiting for its prey to walk over and reclaim the tool. As the creature snarled, brutally driving the tool deep into the mud, Chase quickly turned and snuck away. He wanted to run, but any sound could be his death. Ears flattened, Chase crawled under a log, grimacing as he sunk himself into mud and bugs. The creature had surely realized it by now. The trap failed, indicating that its agitated hiss. He heard footsteps, but was unable to place in their direction. He would be found eventually. He had to return the tower to regroup with his friends. The dirty shepherd was about to step a paw outside his cover when he heard a growl behind him. He quickly retracted further under the log. Shaken in mud, he had no idea where the creature was exactly, or where it was somewhere behind him. It was just one growl. What did it mean? Was it moving away, or coming closer? Or did it truly lose Chase, or was it mere seconds from death? Suddenly, the log above him lurched forward, smashing into Chase's back. Ugh! He suppressed a pain, cried, as the log already pressuring his spine. It wasn't over. The log pushed further. Chase bit his tongue hard as possible to withhold his screams as he was crushed underneath. If his bind wasn't going to snap, he was going to be forced onto the ground, buried in mud and left to suffocate. Varrock Smalls has its paw on the top of the log, propelling itself to get a view of its surroundings, trying to locate its prey. It truly was unaware of Chase's location, or was it executing him? Burying him alive in ground? Chase tried to shift himself to his side, but his body was trapped. He struggled to get a gulp of air as the water began to rise over his nose. His paws and arms were pushed deep into the soil, effectively rooting for its incoming grave. His lungs began to thrive, quivering and pleading for the air as the puppy fought to keep his nose up. Jagged wood began to cut into his head, and water leaked into his mouth. The log was forced further, pressing the dog in the ground as he began to slowly consume by darkness. With a final hiss of irritation, Varrock Smalls turned, releasing the weight from the log. Chase was milliseconds from suffocating to death when his burden suddenly lifted, his nose shooting out of the mud and desperately inhaling. His life was spared for now. He struggled against holding the mud, wraggling his arms and legs free from their hold in the ground, shooting out his front legs and gripping whatever solid ground he could find. Finally dragging himself out, he quickly coughed up the grime that had slipped down his throat, and then took a few deep breaths. His fur was completely slathered in mud and twigs, obscuring his natural colors and making him resemble that of a swamped corpse. His back was in agony from the overheated assault, but he had to return to the others. Looking around fearfully, his muddy ears pricked at the unworldly shriek in the distance behind him. The monster was surely going back to look to finish Rocky, Zuma, and Marshall, if it couldn't have done the shepherd. The blowtorch was gone, and it was comforting red light now dead, and it felt the only tool Chase knew that made of the monsters even hesitate. "Rocky!" Chase said to himself, his concern growing as he looked around, trying to find a new way out. Marshall, if he was going to get home, he would need to follow the one and only indicator he had, the Varrock's miles. It was heading back, and if he didn't follow it, he would be lost in this forever maze of trees. Shaking himself off, which was painful, and his spine was still recovering, he mustered up the courage and crept off in the direction of the monster's roar. "Rocky, come on!" Zuma whined as he looked down in worry. "I hear its roar. It's coming back." "I've never done this before, okay?" The mix shot back in reply, trying to carry the heavy crowbar in his mouth. "You need to wedge it right under the hinges." "Even if I managed that, these things weren't made for puppies," Rocky gripped. "I just don't think I have the strength to rip off a cover for off the wall." "Just try." Marshall was pacing back and forth, trudging through the mud as rainfall hid his distressed tears. Rocky steadied himself and then fell upon his back legs. Trying on 2 instead of 4 legs was an awkward experience, but he needed the height to successfully jam the crowbar in. After a few attempts, he gave a yelp of triumph as the tool wedged in place. "Got it!" Rocky lowered himself back down, and Zuma came over. "We just need to get this thing open. That'll be a group effort." Rocky stood up again, swaying for a moment before the handle of the tool gritted his teeth. He fought for a moment and then let go. Instead, he grabbed into a handle with his paws, fearing the breaking teeth from his force. Zuma had approached next, standing up as well, gripping the handle with the mix. "Marshall, get in here!" Zuma called over his shoulder. The Dalmatian looked up wearily. "I'm not strong enough for that." "You're still a furred dog. Come on!" Muttering quietly, Marshall nervously walked over and tried to stand up. He'd done it before, but rising the dread of circumstances made it difficult to do even the simplest things. After a few seconds, Marshall managed to stand and join in the two, holding the tool. "All right, pull!" Rocky commanded. All 3 dogs pulled the tool with all their might, but the cover didn't budge. They tried 4 times, each attempt containing more effort than the last, but no matter how much they tried, they simply weren't strong enough. Varrock's miles merged back in the clearing, slinking through the trees with a silent movement. Its beady eyes scanned its surroundings, noting that each kennel, growing slightly, it trudged forward to hunt down the remaining meat. Seconds after it left the trees, Chase's mud-covered head emerged from the bush, hushed and alert. Following the creature was one of the most haunting events in his life, although not as haunting as killing Sky. Once a twig snapped or a rustling shrug would have been completely alerted it, and leading it to an unescapable death. He had been successful so far, managing to make his way back. He took one paw and crept out of the bushes, watching the creature approach Rocky's kennel and peered inside. The shepherd's heart skipped a beat immediately, fearing for his friend, but Varrock's miles merely turned around its head away and went into the other kennel and peered inside. Once he had Chase's words, they all likely had the vent right now. Perhaps that they are far away from safety than they had opened it so long ago. But creeping through the woods, Chase kept a long distance from the monster, and using his muddied appearance as camouflage as he made his way behind the tower. "It's no use!" Rocky panicked, as he gave the crowbar another hopeless tug. "We're going to die! We're going to die!" Marshall said, pacing. "Okay, I'm in charge now," Zuma growled, turning to the others. "Follow me." Suddenly the Dalmatian jumped in the air in surprise. "Ah!" The 2 dogs quickly turned their heads, eye-wide at their friend's outburst. Both the mix and the lab froze against the sight of the creature before them. A creature caked in blood and mud. "Quiet!" Chase insisted, looking around. "It's here. I couldn't keep it in the forest." Marshall fell backwards, sticking its 4 legs straight in the air as he laid with a shocked expression. Rocky blinked, shaking his head. "Chase, is that you?" "What the hell happened to you?" Zuma exclaimed at the shepherd's grisly appearance. "You look like a swamp monster." "I narrowly escaped death, that's what happened," Chase replied hastily. "It's still in the clearing, and I'm pretty sure I just heard Marshall. We need to go now." "We can't," Rocky protested. "We're not strong enough to get this thing off." "Oh, for God's sake," Chase snarled, flattening his ears at his friend's hopelessness. "We are all about to be dead in 4 seconds, and you just gave up?" The shepherd quickly shouldered past the Labrador, standing up and gripping the tool. "All 4 of us should be more than enough." Rocky Marshall quickly moved to grab the tool once again, but Zuma hesitated for a brief moment. He was happy to see his friend alive, but deep down, a part of him had hoping that Chase had run to his death in the forest. Shaking the thoughts away, he quickly came up behind and joined the group in effort. "Now!" Chase gave the command. All 4 of them lurched back, putting every amount of effort that they had. There was no greater motivation than knowing how failing to do so at this one big thing could result in a complete extinction of the Paw Patrol. As if someone by miracle, the vent cover broke under the pressure, snapping it from the hinges and falling to the wet soil. Screws and broken bolts were flown into the air, landing in the water like drops of metal. The vent was now open, revealing a dark, hot, narrow corridor that led into the inner workings of the lookout. "We did it!" Rocky exclaimed. "Go!" Chase turned to them. "Get inside, I'll follow." The shepherd quickly helped Rocky inside, pushing him in, then to Marshall, and helped as well. He turned to Zuma, holding up his paw for a boost. Zuma merely just stared at the shepherd for a brief second, a blank look on his face. Chase frowned, and lowering his paw slightly, the lab suddenly walked forward, pushing past Chase as he climbed into the vent on his own, rejecting Chase's assistance. While slightly perturbed, the muddied police dog thought nothing of it and jumped into the vent. The Vurox Mouse had been searching the blue kennel, where it heard the Dalmatian scream. It picked its head up, standing with the firm yet 7 feet tall, as it lurched its torn ears. Trying to narrow on the sound, its tentacles danced in the air, tasting for sounds and smell could pick it up on it. It stood still like an antenna that was close to relaxing, as if nothing else hit its ears. Then the vent cover fell. The sharp, unmistakable sound of tearing metal ran throughout its hearing. Snarling, Vurox Mouse bared its teeth as it narrowed on the sound. After a few moments, it turned its head in the direction of the tower. The sound had likely come from behind it. Getting low, the creature began silently stalk its way over, its thin tail flickering behind it.
What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Ms. Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, stay pretty.